It's time for a Humans in Tune conversation with Darren on 93.9 Mike FM.
Hello, friends of 93.9 Mike FM, fair listeners and viewers. Thanks again for tuning in for another Humans in Tune segment here with 93.9 Mike FM. I'm your host, Darren Bergfeld, still without hair, but I brought two handsome fellas along to tell you all about some amazing jazz that is coming to Scout Hall this weekend. It's going to be an incredible show, and I'd like to welcome to the 93.9 Mike FM studios via Zoom, Bennett Wood and Felipe Brito. Guys, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having us.
You bet. Yeah, it's an exciting show this Friday night at Scout Hall. Tickets are on sale now at thescouthall.com. Can't say enough to grab your tickets. I would suggest, and just from my experience on the last jazz show we had with Andre Hayward, grab those tables. Man, that is such a cool experience to be right up there in the heat of battle, so to speak, watching these performers. But, yeah, we are excited about the show. Scout Hall, a new venue here in downtown Cape Girardeau. What I love about Scout Hall is the night before you guys, there's kind of a new era rock band that's playing. They've had hip hop in there, anything under the sun. Scout Hall is trying to really bring it all in. So it's exciting to have you in town. To talk a little bit more about these guys, they're not just friends of Darren that like to play music. These guys are amazing. Bennett Wood is joining us from Webster University. He's Director of Jazz Studies at Webster. And education coordinator at Jazz St. Louis. And I want to touch a little bit on Jazz St. Louis as well, but both incredible performers. Felipe, of course, joined us last time when we had Andre in town. He is the director of jazz and assistant professor of trombone, one of the greatest instruments in the world, if not the, no offense, at Southeast Missouri State University. So, again, welcome, guys. This Friday night, let's get excited about this show. What kind of vibe you going to be bringing?
Well, go ahead, Felipe.
All right. So thank you so much for having us again. Ben is a good friend of mine, amazing saxophonist. And of course, we're going to be playing a lot of saxophone music, going over different styles of jazz, bebop, some standards. We're going to be playing one or two originals and just having fun. I think that the main purpose of this concert series that started with Andre, like you said, is bring instrumental music to Cape Girardeau, specifically jazz. And jazz, like you said, eating globs and it has other music genres related with it. When you play bossa nova, you're also playing jazz. When you play funk, you're also playing jazz. The jazz language is inserted into those other music genres. So when we have Bennett on Friday, we're going to be going through a lot of different influences, but most importantly, with instrumental music and jazz as the main force.
Absolutely. I think of jazz as an art form in and to itself. And yeah, it's music, but you're right. It's you're painting a picture of a little bit of, Latin American vibe influence or, oh man, I feel like this could almost be an Erykah Badu backing track or something. Like the vibe goes all over the place with jazz. And personally, I love, as a trombone player, I love playing with a saxophone. I love playing with a great saxophone player. Just that matchup, those, everybody thinks a woodwind's not beast mode, man. Sax players can wail like a truck horn, man, and it's amazing. And Bennett, I've kind of did my little bit of digging on you. I'm excited to hear you play, man.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. I love that timbre of trombone with tenor saxophone specifically. I think that's going to be I love that sound. It's going to be really fun to do this gig with Felipe this Friday. And on a note about the different styles of music that all kind of being encompassed together. The three of us on this interview all spent a little bit of time living in Austin, Texas. Felipe and I just missed each other by, I guess, a year or maybe 2 years at University of Texas at Austin.
Okay.
And so all of us spent a little bit of time in these musical circles in Austin, dealing with probably some of the same folks. And so it's really cool to see how small this music world really is. When we get together now in Cape Girardeau and realize, okay, when we were talking about repertoire for this gig, Felipe and I were kind of exchanging some ideas, and I was thinking, oh, okay, this Brazilian tune, I first played this in Austin with Gabriel Santiago, great guitar player who went to school at UT Austin, a couple years ahead of me. And so it's like, you meet people in this music and you learn from them, and then you learn from other folks, and it all kind of meshes together. And so it's going to be a beautiful night of music, but also it'll be a fun evening of just musical fellowship and getting together and exchanging ideas, and that's part of the beauty of jazz is that we think of the improvisation. Hopefully folks also think of the groove and how, like, when we listen to jazz, it makes you want to move. Again, whether that's funk based or bossa nova or swing, you're either, if you're not dancing in your seat or getting up and dancing, we're not doing our job. So our plan is to have folks really having a good time and grooving and enjoying the music and enjoying the musical dialogue, because I bring certain things melodically and musically that I associate with music, and Felipe brings his own things, and so like when we bring that together, it's a musical conversation, and we hope that folks will come and enjoy that.
That's a good way to put it, a musical conversation. Yeah. And, jazz in its own right, I mean, amidst the noise and the haste of all the different genres that are out there, and especially in the popular music scene, right? You don't typically crank on your radio and bam, there's a jazz song. But you crank on your radio and here's this tune with this great backbeat, and maybe, next thing you know, you're listening to jazz. You just didn't know it was not labeled as jazz per se. It really does touch almost every genre you're going to hear on popular music today.
That is 100% on point. Yeah, and I'm thinking, again, I'm gonna tie it back to Austin, Texas. There's a bass player that I met and played with there, a guy by the name of Nick Clark, and he went from working for Samsung making microchips, and at some point he decided, okay, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna play music full time.
Take the leap.
And now he's playing behind John Baptiste. He's on John Baptiste's tour. He's played behind all kinds of pop artists, and that's true even if you look at country and western music. A lot of the great rhythm section players on your favorite country records are jazz players first.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of how they hone their chops.
Yep.
And they just happen to work in country and western music. So
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Going more towards what we're offering also through this concert series is that we're bringing heavyweight guests like Bennett to Cape Girardeau to expose the people in Cape Girardeau to this type of music, but also to the level of playing, So we are lucky that the house band is formed by amazing musicians. Jay Contrino on drums. He went to Berkeley, North Texas, Bennett Turner, bass player who was a student at SEMO, and Matt Gates on guitar, also a student at SEMO, lives in Nashville, plays recording and teaches a lot. So when we collaborate together, it's a good mix of local musicians, myself, faculty here at SEMO, Bennett coming as a guest, and always bringing community. The SEMO gigging project that we have, where we bring the students to play gigs in town. The big picture is honestly what the other ensembles are doing, but what can we do that the other ensembles cannot do? It's going to be difficult for you to go to a pizza place and see a whole wind symphony or an orchestra playing, but a jazz quintet or a trio can do that.
Yeah.
So exposing positively the talents that we have on River Campus to the Cape Girardeau community, it's a great way to connect. And I always say that if it's theater, music, dance, you're going to be seeing these kids later on, like Bennett is saying, in other collaborating with country musicians, rock musicians on TV. It already happened. It's going to continue happening. And why not you
Yeah.
be part of their
Yeah.
a small chapter of their life here in town? You
Be a
know?
part of that story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned those guys, locally here playing. The beauty of it is a lot of people, I think, had this stigma that jazz is inaccessible, or it's a tier of music that it's just not for me. I don't really get into it. But then they'll listen to something that samples Charlie Parker on a hip hop album, or so like, oh man, I love that beat loop. Well, that's actually from a Miles Davis tune, or whatever the case might be. People are touching jazz that don't know it, and so by doing this on a local level and creating this Jazz at the Hall series, you're right. That's bringing that accessibility to people, and frankly, just a guy that sees the River campus and the improvements have been made since my days many moons ago in the jazz program at SEMO. There's such a great opportunity for people to catch this, not just at Scout Hall, but along as the program comes out and you guys have the studio jazz ensemble playing and things like that. So, and it's a steal on the price. Let me say, those tickets are a great bargain for the level of talent in the room and just the creative energy that will flow in the room. And I think for me, not just as a musician, but just a person who appreciates life and color and energy, you catch that at this show. You catch that at a jazz performance.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. And just to close on that, accessibility is something that Gary and we taught a lot, the guys in Rust Media, just giving accessibility to the students. Mm-hmm. So the tickets have a different price for the students.
Yep.
You also have a combination of tables. If people want to purchase tables, the price is low. It gets a little lower.
Oh, yeah.
The experience of the sound is something that I want to emphasize, because if you go and work every day, when you hear instrumental music, which doesn't necessarily have words, you really create a reflection in life about the things that you do. Yeah. When you're listening to sounds, you just understand music in a different way. That's why I started playing trombone, and that's why I got so connected with jazz and Brazilian music, is because of the freedom that you have through improvisation and the sounds that you can create. So you never know how you're going to identify those sounds, but by having that experience in front of you, it really changes you at that moment, and hopefully we can continue doing that every month in Cape Girardeau and bringing that to people,
Yeah. And I think it lifts the veil, so to speak, for musicians, for young musicians. High school jazz was my first experience with it. I had a great teacher then, and then in college, even better. And then, the first time we had Clark Terry in for the Jazz Festival, and hearing him do mumble and listening to the notes that weren't there with Clark and his subtlety with things really makes you realize that you can paint anything you want, and improvisation opens that gate. And for students to learn that, to experience that, and to grow inside that ability, it's like, you want to go there? Freaking go there, buddy. It's jazz. Let's go. You know what I mean? No holds barred on that. So it's an awesome experience. And you're doing a great job, with the students at SEMO. Bennett, let's talk a little bit about Jazz St. Louis and Webster's program. What's going on with you these days?
Yeah. So the work that I do at Jazz St. Louis now is mostly in an advisory role, or I actually do some contract work with them, playing on their stage with the Jazz St. Louis Big Band. So the bulk of my work right now is at Webster University, and we're actually getting ready for an alumni concert tonight.
Oh, nice.
We've got about 22 alumni that are going to come out and perform together. Many of them, have performed together in town in other contexts.
Sure.
That we've got a lot of folks who came through the program and are gigging musicians either in the St. Louis area or elsewhere. They're folks as far away as New York and LA. Of course, not all of them can make it back for this alumni concert, but this is something that I hope to make an annual event, because the response from alumni has been really great. And this concert is actually to benefit the Willie Aikens Memorial Scholarship Fund. Willie Aikens was a huge force in St. Louis music, jazz tenor saxophonist who passed away several years ago. But he also was an adjunct instructor here at Webster University. And, you know, I didn't study at Webster, but I lived, you know, in and around and gigged in and around St. Louis for a number of years when Willie was still alive. And man, he was such a force of nature musically, but he also was somebody who was all about mentoring younger musicians. And, you know, when we talk about accessibility, he really brought, as a younger musician coming up in the scene, I felt like, you know, he wanted me to succeed, but also he was going to hold my feet to the fire. And so this alumni event, raising money for that scholarship fund, is a way to get folks together, but also to you know, pay tribute to somebody who was really important to the St. Louis scene and somebody that was important to Webster University. So we're really excited about that. We've got
that'll help to foster the program too by kind of refibering up those alumni connections, I'm sure too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, we've got folks that came through the program that are, as I said, that are working as gigging musicians, but we've got folks that are, of course, working in music education. Well, one of our alumni is actually an assistant principal now.
Oh, nice.
You know, so we've got folks doing all kinds of things and still playing music at a very high level. And so, that's going to be a really fun concert coming up here.
That's fantastic. And and Webster's always had a great program. I can remember in high school for me, and that's been many moons ago. But, you know, Webster at that time had a really great, strong program. I mean, you know, a couple of guys I went to school with, that's where they wanted to go to continue to pursue, you know, and whether you end up moving on to New England or wherever you go beyond that, North Texas and so forth, it's a great program. And as well as CMOS. Felipe's, you know, the program here is strong. The band program is making me super proud as an alumnus because, you know, we did the marching band alumni deal last fall. That was a blast. And to see the musicians that are coming, just as a guy who's still playing around town, you know, and maybe someday we'll need to call one of those sub a Shades of Soul gig or something for me so I can sleep later. But so, you know, and as we look at jazz as a whole, kind of, I wouldn't, you know, you don't want to say it's a rebirth of things. Jazz has always been alive and flowing and evolving and changing. And like we've said, you know, you hear it, you see it in other genres as well. But the influence in a younger generation, and this may be because of the digital accessibility of things. You know, when I was a kid, if I wanted to listen to jazz, I had to go, you know, dig up an old Herb Alpert album or something just to get, you know, to find those recordings, you know, that the old school vinyls and, you know, whatever you could find in the record shops around. But now, man, if I want to go listen to a brand new jazz album, it's right there, you know?
Yeah.
How has that changed things for you guys as educators and mentors to jazz musicians? Do you see, you know, the younger generations coming in with just a deeper catalog or more curiosity about it, or what do you see more above all?
Man, I think it varies some student to student, but also I will say, you know, I mean, even when I was an undergrad, it was like if I would get an assigned, you know, piece of repertoire, a new tune that I got to learn, and I would immediately go to the music library. And if they didn't have that on CD or on record or something like that, then that meant I had to go to the store and try and find it at, like, back in the day when we bought CDs at, you know,
Disc Jockey and Camelot. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so, you know, now it's like everything's free on YouTube. So folks don't even have to necessarily have a subscription or anything. They can find a record on YouTube. But I think every generation has its challenges, and having access to millions of records at your fingertips, as long as you have a high-speed internet connection, can mean, it doesn't always mean, but it can mean not as deep a connection to the records. And let me explain what I mean. You know, if I have 10 records in my collection, I'm probably gonna wear those out.
Right.
Especially like if there's 3 of those records that I really, really love, I'm gonna wear those records out and know them to the point where I can sing the melodies, I can sing the solos, I know what's happening in the different parts of the tune. Versus if I have access to millions of tunes, I might only listen halfway through a track. I might might not even know what other songs are on the record, on the album. You know what I mean?
Shallow
So
lake versus a deep pond, kind of.
yeah, it can be. And so I think it's sometimes a challenge to kind of limit and draw down and say, okay, no, I'm really gonna focus on this one thing and try and understand this before I move on to the next thing. And so I think that's a challenge that is in a way a lot harder than what I had to overcome, because I just had to, I had to maybe shell out some money or something like that to get a hold of a record if I really wanted to learn a tune. But then I had that,
Right.
and because of the limitations of that time, I would really get familiar with it. Now that might mean that if there's, another version of the same song that's way different and I'm not familiar with it, then I might get embarrassed,
Right.
but at least I'm really familiar with one version of the song. And so I think that's one of the challenges. I don't know, Felipe, you got thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And going to specifically to the question of like what the students are thinking these days, at least at SEMO, the way that our program is structured is that we have students doing several things at the same time, playing different ensembles. So sometimes we're going to have a student that plays French horn, sings in the choir, and plays piano. Eli is one of our students here. He does that. And he plays some percussion too. So when he's playing piano in the jazz band, and he's actually playing on the jam session that we have this week on Thursday
nice.
before. On Thursday we have a jam session, by the way, at Spectrum Lounge. It's a monthly jam session, 7 to 9:30. And the house band is formed by the majority students. And then I have me and someone else as a professional playing. So Bennett Turner is the bass player. Eli is playing piano. And then we have 2 other students. So it's funny how they have to go and learn new repertoire for the gig. Then they immerse themselves into the process of, okay, so I need to learn a tune. I need to memorize the melody. I need to know the lyrics. If you have lyrics, I need to know the harmony. I need to know the changes. And then I'm going to improvise over it and I'm going to be ready to play. Right. Where in classical music, when we teach classical music, you have a piece or an etude, you practice that, and that's it. You have a destination. Very clear. The goal is to play what is on the page. For jazz, it's very different. The freedom, like Bennett said, it's not only overwhelming when you have so many options to listen ready at any moment, but also the art form can be overwhelming. It was overwhelming for me, when I started to get deeper and deeper into jazz in Brazil, because I was like, there are too many possibilities. What is the goal here? How can I practice this? How can I prepare?
Yeah.
So the answer is like, there is no ending, and it's beautiful because as humans, we watch a series on Netflix, you want to see the end. You go on Spotify, you got to see the new album or the new tune. You listen to the end, you got it. There is nothing that ends in jazz. You're constantly learning. You can do the same tune in a million different ways, So
yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's a feeling. It's an inner tempo. Like once you've synced with your rhythm section and everybody's on that same page, and you've got your, you know your changes, your scales. Then it's just, man, we're on the ocean. Let's just sail. And that's what makes it, for me, that's what makes it fun to watch. What makes it fun to listen to is seeing the subtleties in the face of one soloist is getting ready to pass off the other one. They just, trombone players, we don't turn very well. So the little side glance and the and then right off into the next, and here you take it for 8, you take it for 12 or whatever it is. And that's cool. And that's why I love jazz and blues. I've got a 7th grade son who started trombone this year, despite my best pleas to get something in a different octave. But he's learning, but learning those scales, but just playing along with some 12-bar blues or something, learning those basics of improvisation. For me, it was always a confidence thing because I was always scared I'd screw up until my teacher said, don't worry about screwing up. I mean, it's jazz and you're on a trombone. So if you play a note and it's supposed to be an A and it's an A flat, guess what? Just slide up into the A and now it's a cool jazz moment. So it's forgiving, I think, jazz is.
Yeah, it certainly can be. I mean, I think one of the things that Felipe really eloquently stated, but I'll restate it. And, something we talk about at Webster a lot is that this is an oral tradition, that it's something that in order to really learn how to play, you have to listen. And it's not something you can learn from the page. There's all kinds of theory that can be helpful, but ultimately that theory, the end goal is to help you hear it. Right. And so, going back to Louis Armstrong, going back to the very beginnings of the music, all the great jazz musicians learned, and we can extend that even beyond jazz, the great blues musicians, the great funk musicians, the great country musicians. The reason we talk about these styles of music in the same kind of realm is that they come out of the African American diaspora, and that it's an oral based style of music, that it's an oral tradition that the new generation has to learn by listening to what came before, and then of course they're gonna take that and absorb that, learn to emulate it, and then do their own thing with it.
Right.
And that's part of the beauty of this music too, is that it's always changing because you always have new folks that listen and absorb whatever musical lessons they can from it, and then they say, okay, cool, let me do this how I hear it now.
I like to cook, and jazz is like cooking to me. And you're right, that's it.
100%.
All of a sudden we're saying, you know what, instead of paprika, let's use cumin this time and see what we end up with, or whatever the case might be. But yeah, you're right. And that's how it's evolved. I mean, those, who wrote the first jazz piece? I don't know, but the guy the next day rewrote it and, did it in half time or something. So it's exciting to see the growth of it. I'm excited about this series and continuing on as we get through every month, seeing who Felipe's managed to finagle into town to come hang out with us and bless us with your talents. It's going to be fun. I would keep you guys here forever, but Zoom is going to kick me off in 3 minutes. So I do want to reiterate to everybody to get your tickets. You can go to thescouthall.com. That's the website. You can do it right there online. Grab your tickets, grab your table. And I know just from the show with Andre, you guys are accessible. I mean, this is if you've not been to Scout Hall yet, it's an intimate venue. It's a great spot. The audio quality in there is fantastic. They've done a great job of making this room sound spectacular, especially for jazz. But really anything in that room sounds amazing. So, and you guys will be right there. I had Andre giving my son advice, and I was like, hey, I should listen to this too. Cause, but, it's right there. It's in your face, and it's live and organic right here in your own backyard. And that's what I love about it. We're excited to be bringing you guys in. Bennett, thanks again for chatting with me today. Felipe, thank you so much for taking some time out. Anything you want to leave anybody with in our last couple minutes before we bail?
That's all. We thank you, Bennett, for coming. It's going to be fun, like you said, Darren. It's a unique opportunity, and everyone's welcome. So hope to see everyone there.
Yeah, and pursue jazz. Let me encourage you, if you're watching this and you're like, man, I'm just kind of listening to this, listening to that, sounds like a good show. Pursue jazz, okay? Make it a point to go find something new that's going to blow your mind, or go find something new that you just want to chill to. Jazz is able to take you on those highs and lows. Here's Dancing Men and Buddy Rich screaming, or you've got, some mellow grooves right here. So pursue jazz and pursue it locally. Come see the Studio Jazz Ensemble. Come see SEMO's jazz students play. Head up to Webster. It's a short drive. Go to Jersey Mike's, grab a sandwich, go to Webster. Watch a killer jazz show. Catch those Jazz St. Louis shows. Catch, Del Mar Hall's bringing people in. There's a lot of great venues in St. Louis that are doing some great shows. City Winery, man, they're getting some great stock up there.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of the vibe with Scout Hall too. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. This has been another Humans in Tune adventure on 93.9 Mike FM. I thank you guys for coming. Thank you for tuning in, listening live. Spread the word, and we will see you next time for our next Humans in Tune segment on 93.9 Mike FM.
Thanks for catching this Humans in Tune conversation with 93.9 Mike FM. Find previous interviews on our Facebook page, or you can listen via our podcast at 93.9mikefm.com.